Let's have a look at this last story. It's got both a news story from tonight, and then we're going to have a look at your crush on with Chris Bishop from Breakfast this morning, talking about it as well. I'm being honest. I think that there is something wrong with the system right now around people just walking into shops, taking what they want and walking out, and everybody doing nothing. I think the system we've got right now is flawed, but I think I side with a lot of people on this new idea that it might not be the answer either. So, you know, what is the answer? I'm not sure, but there are many people, especially people in and around retail, who are saying citizens' arrest powers are not the answer. Let's have a look at the story.
Widespread opposition continues to be voiced against a government proposal to broaden citizens' arrest rights to help tackle retail crime. There are concerns it'll incite vigilantism and put employees and the public at needless risk of harm. Jacob Johnson reports.
Retail crime is something many have witnessed, but if you could physically intervene, would you want to?
Like, there's something in my mind wrong with what we're looking at right now, which is not just a ram raid, it's inside a mall. So they're robbing Michael Hill inside a mall. So it's not like it's on a main road where they can jump to a car and be gone. They have to leave the mall, go out into the car park, get in their car, and then, there's something that feels wrong about that. But like I said, I don't know if this is the answer, or I was thinking about it today. Maybe training security guards better for this kind of thing, giving them some, not arrest powers, but, detainment powers, and having some more of them in places like this. I don't know what the answer is, but this feels wrong. And I'm being told by people I listen to, experts, that the citizens arrest powers is not the answer. So what is? I don't know yet, but we'll keep seeing what One News has to say.
I think I would step back and just let the relevant authorities deal with it.
Just smack them over with your leg and pull them aside and say, here, mate.
The proposed citizens' arrest reforms announced yesterday would allow anyone from shopkeepers to security guards to bystanders to step in to stop offenders at any time. But how widely are these changes actually wanted?
Our members have told us that they don't want to be physically engaging with customers in their store. They don't have a space to detain someone.
Did you actually go to retailers and speak to them about this proposal?
Oh, well, look, this was a recommendation from the Retail Advisory Group that Sonny Koshel has been leading. He's been talking to a range.
If Chewie was here tonight, he'd be wanting to talk about Sonny, mate. Because old Sonny, mate, was the guy that Chewie always talks about, was always the one outside the front of the dairies during the last election. He tried to attend every ram raid he could to make sure it got onto television as much as he could to help National win. And now,
range of people right across the retail sector. These proposals particularly have been something that the smaller dairy owners have been pushing for a long time.
Since it was announced, there's been widespread opposition from industry bodies and unions.
Obviously, the opinions would be different. What we take...
And now, he's on the Ministerial Advisory Group. The man who was making all the noise about the ram raids and as the representative of the dairy owners. And so now, I guess, if he was going to be honest and follow that theme, he'd have to run some kind of defense for the negative responses coming from the retail industry. If he's going to stay true to form, he'll have to be going, no, they're wrong. This is a really good idea. Let's see what he says.
The opinions would be different. What we take, the holistic view of all the opinions, put it together in the draft, discuss with the agencies, and look at the international practices.
The reforms call for restraints and reasonable force to be allowed to detain someone. But this legal expert wants to see specifics about what reasonable force means.
Not like you can always put them in a headlock or you can always grab them this way. It's a matter of what are they doing that you need to use sufficient force to contain them. And that's hard to measure.
Even police get it wrong sometimes.
We have officers charged with assaults or excess force numerous times a year, and it is a very hard thing to judge.
As for the minister, he says it'll be up to the courts to decide what's reasonable force.
I think the average person can figure out that holding somebody...
They can't. I'm sorry, that's the whole. They can't figure this out, Paul.
Stopping them from carrying away stolen goods is a reasonable force.
Foodstuffs, which owns New World and Pack and Save, says its focus remains on collaboration with police and measures like its trial of facial recognition technology, while Woolworths told One News it looks forward to understanding more about the proposed changes, joining the calls for more detail. Jacob Johnson, One News.
So we are going to turn that down. We're going to play a couple of clips from breakfast as well, where Kieran McAnulty and the Bish were talking about this, and the Bish uses really interesting language in that conversation, how often and how clearly he wants to talk about people using like reasonable force and reasonable actions, almost as if he's setting up a defense for when it gets passed and people then don't use reasonable force. But Ems, what are your thoughts around this idea of citizens? I keep wanting to say citizens' advice because that flows more naturally, but citizens arrest. Yeah.
I can just see it going so badly in terms of the scene that was going through my head, right? You got the jewelry store, and I've got something like a thick book or something that I could just so happen to throw at one of their heads to be like, stop, don't do that. The book's either going to hit them on the head, they then smash it, and then they die because I hit them on the head, and my now manslaughter charges are probably on me for doing that, but I was trying to stop a crime. The other option is that book then goes and smashes one of those pretty blunt object, but probably not, smashes one of those glass cabinets, and then, oh look, I've made it easier for them to now grab the more jewelry. I'm now complicit in the crime. There's just so many things that could go wrong, and no, there's a very particular kind of person that's going to put themselves in the situation of actually helping or going to intervene. I would say majority of people are not those kind of people. The kind of people that run in there and think that they can do something are either absolute morons, have some sort of hero complex, probably are like future military or future police officers or whatever it is. You know, think that they can save the world type people. And it'll probably go bad for them in just about every scenario. Yeah, just don't do it. Just let it, it's property. Who the fuck cares? It's property. Like, don't put yourself in the harm's way to stop someone from stealing shit. If someone's trying to murder another human being, that's a different story entirely. This is property crime. Like, who the fuck cares if thousands of dollars of shit gets stolen? If you end up getting lumped in with their charges in the future, or you end up hurting one of them and trying to stop them, and now you yourself are involved in this, just like, who cares? Just step back. If you're not hurting people, step back. Who cares? That's my sense.
The story you're talking, I mean, the idea you're putting out there about throwing a thick book at someone and the damage. Today on Twitter, that came across my Twitter feed where there was a shoplifter in what appears to be a supermarket. One of the employees throws a bottle of Coke at him, hits him in the head, knocks him out. And I thought, should I play that tonight? Because this is this kind of whole thing we're talking about. And maybe I will play it now. There's no noise, there's no graphic. The guy didn't die or anything. So I think it's pretty safe to play. It's all over the internet already. And it's very small because we don't have any detail. So I'll show you. And then this is what you were just talking about. So I'm sorry, this is the size of the video. The guy in the white hat here, he's the shoplifter. This is one of the workers trying to stop him. And it comes in from the left-hand side of the screen. I'm not going to play any sound. The right-hand side of the screen. So see that dude there in the red? He's got the bottle over his head and he's about to throw it at the shoplifter, and exactly what you said. Hits him in the head, knocks him out. So that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
That's a reality. And then, I mean, I'm assuming it's America because it's ridiculous and whatever. And so I'm not assuming anything would happen to that guy because, you know, you can shoot someone for shoplifting in America in some places. But that's the example of what you're talking about. Then what? So the dude stole a Snickers bar and now he's got brain damage.
Seems and now you've got manslaughter charges.
Now you've got manslaughter charges, yeah. Or aggravated assault or whatever it's going to be.
Charges, yeah.
Yeah, Dave mentions the one punch law in New Zealand. I remember I didn't know the person personally, but I knew someone who was friends with a young Indian man at Auckland, I can't remember his name, who got punched, one punch, fell back, hit his head, dead. You know, so that's the other side of it. This law will lead to people getting harmed trying to stop things and people getting charged when they go too far. It's impossible for it not to happen. But in saying all of that, and I don't say but because I want to negate what I've just said, walking into Michael Hill Jewelers in the mall and doing that doesn't look right either. So it's very easy to go, no answer. But if we now challenge ourselves to what is the answer, I don't know. More security guards? I mean, I don't know. But this has alarm bells around it, this idea.
Tell you someone who might know the answer. Our friend of the show, Timothy Paul, who has talked about the poverty to crime or poverty to prison pipeline. You know, if you keep them in education, if you keep them well fed, if you keep them busy, kids will, because a lot of this was tied to rape rates in children, young adults. Keep them busy, a lot of this stuff tends to go away. So
let's have a look at the breakfast crew this morning, talking to is your crush.
I was explaining this to my mum and it was hilarious. And she's like, who's this? And I'm like, oh, mum. Oh, okay, never mind then, don't worry.
Kieran and the Bish. It's Kieran and the Bish. And I've just got the bit from here where they're talking about the exact thing, the citizens' arrest powers. Now, there's a couple of really interesting questions that come from the second part of it, but the first part of it is quite simply, what is the need for this law to be changed?
Well, look, the law at the moment is quite interesting. So citizens arrest or detaining shoplifters, basically, you can do it if the value of the goods is over $1,000 and it's after 9 o'clock at night. That's the law now, which is interesting. And so what we're saying is that it does seem a bit weird. Like if you can get involved, it's 2 minutes to 9. It's 1 minute to 9. They're robbing this. It's not okay. I'm going to help now.
And now I'm going to throw my book.
Yeah, you can throw my book.
Apply at all hours of the day and night. Pretty ridiculous that it becomes legal to detain someone who's shoplifting from you if it's 9:01 p.m. and the value of the goods is $1,001. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think that's where you're seeing the people saying the law's outdated. So we're just bringing the law into the 21st century. Shoplifting is a huge issue. Billions of dollars of retail crime. It's lifted a lot in the last 5 to 6 years.
I mean, I don't want to say this. I don't want to beat up on companies and businesses, but is it a huge issue? I mean, we keep hearing about supermarkets, super profits. Like, is it a huge issue, really? I mean, I don't want to talk about the local dairy owner who's an owner operator and that's not okay, but is it a huge issue? If we went through the list of issues in the country that we're facing right now, where's shoplifting going to be? I think it's going to be quite a long way down that issues list. Personally, I mean, I guess it depends. If you are the dairy owner, it's probably at the top. But for society in general, I don't know if it's a huge issue. It's an issue, but I don't know. Huge issue.
And so we're making this change. It was suggested by the Retail Crime Advisory Group and put a bill in the House. It'll go to select committee and no doubt there'll be a robust debate about it as there already is.
Well, let's have it now. It is a robust debate, but it's not just changing the sort of arbitrary time of 9 o'clock, though, is it, Kieran? It's actually talking about the consequences potentially of that.
Well, look, bills and laws get reviewed all the time, but let's not pretend that this is what is happening here. I mean, they made this out yesterday to be the big solution to retail crime. This is announced in the context of retail crime going up 11% last year, the number of cops falling, the number of homeless rising, and methamphetamine use going through the roof. So that's the situation that the government faced themselves in. And they needed to come up with a solution. And their solution was to turn around and say to shopkeepers and workers, you sort it out and we'll let you do it. It's hardly giving people confidence that they're going to deal with the retail crime and the things that lead to that. When you've got the cops saying they don't like it, Retail New Zealand saying they don't like it, the union and workers saying they don't like it, I can't see how the government would say this was a successful announcement.
Is it just a cop-out, Minister?
Well, the police have to be involved ultimately in the prosecution and the arresting of anyone. That's what the law will say, is that you can detain someone using reasonable force, but then you have to call the police. And this is the law in other countries as well. So it just reflects the fact that the police can't be everywhere. We are adding more police. We're hiring police officers and training hundreds of police officers right now. We're putting more police.
Do you love when Kieran starts laughing? You can go, he's got a point coming.
Police on the beat, and people out there watching will have seen police, out on the streets a bit more, because we've got taking a back to basics approach where people do see the police walking through their malls and walking on the street a bit more. But the police can't be everywhere, and retail crime's a big problem, and it's an opportunistic crime. People just go away and thieve stuff and nick stuff.
They can't be everywhere.
Shopkeepers get. That's right.
one more clip to play you, and there's something that Kieran reveals in that second part of the clip, which I think probably nobody knows. A little thing that when he had a run-in with crime. We'll just keep rolling through this, Eames, then we can wrap the whole thing up. It's about 3 minutes in total. The thing that I want to point back to with this is actually Bishop says something really interesting in this about, the current system and how long it takes for a police officer to come out. And it just made me think, okay, so now there's 3 shops in a suburb who are all sitting on a shoplifter. How long do they have to sit on a shoplifter for? How will this be prioritized? How will the police officer or officers now get to that person? What happens if you phone 111 and you go, we've detained someone and we're physically holding them, and the police are going to be like, yeah, we'll see you in 25 minutes. Do you know what I mean? That's a huge, because basically this would become a priority 1 event, because you have a alleged criminal, a shoplifter who is being restrained by someone, and that could escalate. So the police have to be there immediately. So what this legislation will do is give all police through New Zealand a new priority 1 thing to get to, because they basically, if they don't get there, then who knows what this could explode into for a fight or for a, for trying to hold someone in place. Part 2, they're talking about more about this. And when Bishop says, the police are currently taking 2 hours to get there, just think, well, how long will they take to get there after someone's now restraining them?
Well, walk me through this, because I tried to talk about this with our previous guests. How does it practically work when you're trying to detain someone? You need to contact the police, call them up, maybe put them on speakerphone while you're doing that, and then try and detain them, but not in a way that's unreasonable. Can you just give us a picture of how that practically plays out?
Well, reasonable force depends on the circumstances, and every situation is different. But your classic, right, is people just nicking stuff from supermarkets, and so and the anecdotal feedback I get from people in around the community is that people feel like there's absolutely no consequences, and if the shopkeeper calls the police, they'll arrive, but it will be 3 hours or 2 hours after the incident's happened, and then. So
now, if they're sitting on the person and they phone, the police going to be there in 60 seconds? Or are you going to have to sit on that person for 2 hours? Like, I'm just genuine question. Has this now become, there's a murder happening over here and there's a shoplifter there being held. We better get to both of them as quickly as possible. Because that's what you create.
What if they never turn up? What if you've just like, oh, we can't sit on forever, so let's chuck them in the back room. And then suddenly you've kidnapped someone.
Yeah, exactly. What then?
Let's just be honest, probably under 18. You just kidnapped someone's child, and they're like, where is my son? And they're like, well, he shoplifted from us, so he's just sitting out the back. It's like, release my son. We're waiting for the police. Like, it's just this stupidest situation I can think of. But it's probably going to happen, right?
Yep.
And it'll be on the 6 o'clock news. I was hungry. I stole a Snickers bar. And it's this 13-year-old kid. And then, oh, what did you do, Mr. Shop owner? Oh, I chucked him out back. Oh, we only had the cooler space, so he ended up going in the big freezer. And now he's got frostbite. But hey, the police just took 3 hours to get to us, so I guess, it's not my fault. I was just trying to save my property. Listen
as well in this conversation. He's already said it once, how many times Bishop talks about reasonable force. And I do honestly think it's him going, we better make sure that we have plausible deniability when someone caps someone or knocks their block off. That no, we only ever talk about reasonable force. It's just, it feels like he's repeated it just a few too many times to be more than coincidental. Of
course, it's just people just get away with it, and what we're trying to do is send the message that you can't get away with that anymore. Nicking stuff is a crime, and you shouldn't do it, and there will be immediate consequences if you do that. And the police, of course, have to be involved, but this is, I think, a sensible, pragmatic step. But there's obviously a few things we've got to work through. That's why we're sending the bill to a committee. I'll have a look at it, but I reckon most people will say actually it's pretty reasonable.
But this was part of an announcement of a suite of changes where people saw an increase in resources going to the police, perhaps even funding to community patrols. Many communities and regions have those, and they work alongside the police. As well as this announcement, then people might be looking at it a bit differently, but it's not, is it? It's just we're going to review the citizens' arrest laws, and that's our big solution to retail crime. I think the point that was made yesterday that really stuck with me, and it was a shopkeeper who said it, is that if those that are likely to commit these...
It wasn't just a shopkeeper who said it. It was a shopkeeper who was robbed and beaten over the head with a hammer said this. So it was a shopkeeper who you would think generally would be the kind of person to get behind this. From last night's show, they showed the scar on his head and the stitches that had gone in there. So Kieran's about to retell a story from him, but he's left out the part about the shopkeeper. It's a shopkeeper who has been hit over the head with a hammer when he tried to intervene with robbers in his shop. Exactly the kind of person that you would think, I want more power. But what did he want?
Is that if those that are likely to commit these crimes know that the people inside the shop, be it the workers or other shoppers, are being encouraged to take matters into their own hands, then those people going to commit crimes will go better prepared, perhaps with a weapon or worse.
Yeah.
And I think that that's actually a message that the government really needs to listen to, that if the shopkeepers are saying that, maybe stop and think, is this actually the solution to retail crime?
I think my own view is that the view is actually the opposite, that these kind of opportunistic crimes where people just are walking around a local dairy and go, oh, you know what, there's basically no consequence for this. I'm just going to nick some stuff and walk out with it, and there's nothing that can be done about it. People will know that if the shopkeeper is actually able to go and take them and detain them with, in a reasonable...
Let's just paint that again. You got a dairy owner. He's got the 14-year-old. And he's now detaining him. He's got to wait there for half an hour, 30, 40, 50 minutes for the police to turn up. What's happening in his shop while he's sitting on this 14-year-old on the ground? Like literally, what are the logistics of this? How's it going to work? And like you're saying, Ems, maybe they throw them out the back and then maybe it is a literal kidnapping charge. It's just, look, okay, to be
while
fair,
he's busy, the rest of his gang jump in and they're like, oh, he's sitting on him, get the rest of the stuff we want, and then clean him out while he's too busy sitting on one kid.
To be fair, any kind of legislation on day one, you can poke massive holes in. Select committee will maybe give some more answers. I don't think so, but if we're fair, we're going to also say, look, let's see what happens in select committee. But I just don't see, when it's the people who you think you are helping, the retailers, and police going, nah, then maybe you've got the wrong end of the stick on this one.
Way, and then call the police, people go, oh, actually, you know what, it's actually not a great idea because now I'm going to get caught doing it. So, like, we'll have a debate about it, fair enough. I mean, Kieran's got a legitimate point of view. I reckon mine's pretty legitimate too, so let's wait and see.
I've actually done essentially a citizen's arrest before. And I have. Pretty much the guy that I caught trying to steal my ute, I got into a fight and tackled him onto the ground and basically sat on him until the cops turned up.
Is this the electric ute or your old one?
No, the old one.
Oh, the old one.
The point is, I mean, I didn't realise until the end, but he had a plumber's spanner in his hand. Now, that could have got pretty nasty. Now, asking people to get involved in situations like that, not everyone can do it. But if they take it on and they get hurt, what's the government's response then?
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? That people they're saying it could be dangerous. Perhaps, Mr. McAnulty, you could be involved with the training because sitting on someone might actually do the trick. You can have a chat to the minister after this.
There you go.
I have more questions now.
I know. I thought you'd like that. He is now a bit of a Superman or a bit of a Batman, isn't he?
Oh, he must be one of those people that says either an idiot, a police officer wannabe, or a military wannabe. Sorry, Kieran, but I would love to know more about that story. How old were you? Why were you doing that? And was it worth it? It sounds like he said no. Now that he's quite a bit older, it seems like he's decided maybe that's not a smart idea.
I guess what he was saying. What I heard what he was saying was on reflection, it could have been real bad for me. That's what he was saying. Maybe he's saying he's just lucky that the guy didn't get to it or decided not to try to get to it, or I guess that's the thing. Like, and I mean, maybe this is naive of me, but like I said 3 or 4 times, watching those people just walk out of Michael Hill Jeweler and everyone around them just watching them do it feels a bit off, but equally you don't want to have a bystander get in the way and get stabbed. And as everyone's been saying in the chat, they're all insured. That doesn't mean it makes it okay, but people they're not going to lose the shirts off their back if their store goods get taken because they're insured. Doesn't mean therefore it's okay. It's a real world we live in that means then there is the shopkeeper can be made whole financially, at least. I mean, there may be much worse than that. The guy got cracked in the head with the stitches. I imagine it's far more than just finances for him, but at least the finances can be made whole.
Well, that's the thing, is that people forget that. That's what I was saying before, and someone called me out for it. Like, you can't, don't just stand by just because it's property. No, you're talking stuff or a human life. Are you really going to say to your kids, hey, if you see someone stealing something, you should jump on them and bash them around the head and stop them from doing that, and then you find out it was like a $50 item, and now your kid's going to jail for, assaulting someone or whatever it is, Like, I would say to my kid, if you see that sort of shit, walk the other way, because at the end of the day, your life is more important than that. These are the decisions that they're making. And at the end of the day, it's property. No one gives a shit about diamond rings over a human life. I care about the shop owner who's getting threatened for sure, but I'd much prefer if that shop owner ran out the back, hid somewhere, called the police and said, hey, someone's robbing my store. I'm currently sitting out the back so I don't fucking die. Not worth losing your life over.
I think you've come up with a very good suggestion, is that people like Tamitha Paul are the people who need to be at the pointy end of this conversation, thoughtful, looking for solutions, saying if we are going to spend money on this group of people, maybe spending them over here would be better than spending them on them in prison. Harry Tam and his guys are in that world doing, those are the people, those are the voices I feel like we should be listening to when it comes to my ignorance, when I go, well, what is the answer? If it's not this, what is it? They're the people to at least start the conversation with, and I guess maybe we'll have to do that next week.